Hi everybody, and welcome to this Excel tutorial, specifically Visual Basic. Today we're going to be going over a replacement for the Yahoo Finance API. This was a really requested video that I got, and I think that this will benefit quite a few people. And there's a lot of stuff we can get with this API, not just price data like we see right here. I'm just going to demonstrate this macro very quickly, and we're going to create it ourselves in a second. So let me just adjust the URL right here. So we're just getting chart data, and I'll change it to 1 month, and I'll change it to like another ticker or something like that, and then I'll save it, and I'll delete everything here, and I'll run this macro again, and we can see right here we have 1 month of price data for Ford fairly quickly. Now before I go any further, let's go over here. I have a bunch of tabs open, and we can go to our API that we're going to use right here. So this is IEX. It's an exchange that I don't know if you're familiar with this person, but Brad Katsuyama, who's in Michael Lewis's Flash Boys book, he started an exchange that basically it's sort of like a buffer for automated trading and high frequency trading that try to exploit different exchanges. So that's just a little background on the guy who started this. So IEX has an API for only US equities. So that's a disclaimer right here. So if you're trying to get stocks on other exchanges, it's not going to happen unless they're trading on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, I believe. But anyhow, so to get started, you can go in the documentation. I'll link in the description. And you can see right here, there's a whole bunch of stuff we can get. We're going to stick to chart data for this one, but we can get financials, we can get key stats, which I might do in another video. But hopefully this video will set you up to get any one of these URLs right here. You can just click on one, for example, and get you started. So also, one thing to keep in mind is that we can build our own URLs with this. So we can build our request. So for example, if we want multiple symbols too, we can come right up here. And I think if I just Command F, I think I just passed it, multiple symbols, yeah. So we can use some different commands in order to get multiple symbols and get different statistics too. So we can get chart data, key stats data, all in one if we're able to build our own URL. So this is an example of one where they took multiple symbols, so Apple and Facebook, in different types of requests too. So we got a quote, news, and we got a chart response with our get request. So we're just going to keep it simple for this video and just use let's go back here, the chart, and again we can just build our URL right here. So we have 1 year price data right here, similar to Yahoo Finance. So at the end of the day, we're getting pretty much the same output as Yahoo Finance did. The only thing is that we're limited to 5 years worth of price data for this, and we also get the VWAP here, which is kind of nice too. But that's a separate topic. So we're really just looking at open, high, low, close, and volume. So without further ado, I'm going to copy this URL to start and move this over here and get rid of this. We're going to make a brand new workbook, macro enabled. And as always, normally I implore people to use programming languages for this type of stuff. But if you don't want to do that and you want to stick to Excel, like a lot of people I work with, they don't want to move from Excel to a programming language, then that's quite all right too. But you do have to do a bit of programming in this to make this work. So I'll just label it IEXWB, and I'll get out of my old one. I'll save changes, and there we go. And one last thing. Okay. And we can get started. So the first thing that we want to do, and this is the first step that I always tell people to take when they're working with any type of JSON data, go to this website right here. I think this is one of the best parsers on the net for JSON. So also a background to what JSON is and an API is. An API typically it's basically a system of endpoints, right, where you're able to get data. And one way of doing that is by a GET request. Okay, so normally when we're requesting this URL right here, we're getting a response from the API, right, in the form of a JSON array. Now, a JSON array is an associative array with key and value pairs. So this would be the key right here, and the value would be the date right here. So that's pretty much the extent of what a JSON array is. And if you're confused still, because this looks like gibberish to a lot of people, paste it in here and simply press this button, and you can see we have an array right here, and we have array objects. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7 are all array objects. So the 0 object is technically what should be the date of 2017 10-4, so October 4th, 2017. And we have for this date the open, high, low, close, volume, unadjusted volume, yada, yada, yada. So we can go through, and these are all just going to be dates in ascending order. And we can go through and loop through all these objects and get the data we need to ultimately have the result to the spreadsheet like Yahoo Finance did. So I guess this is like a 2-in-1 with Yahoo Finance and how to, like, I guess, interact with an API in Excel without using the Power Query. So I like using this method better than I'm using to code it by hand because it's a lot faster, I think, and cleaner too. So let me move this back. And we can start by opening up our developer tab and just inserting a module. So I'll just say sub get data, and I'm just going to paste in our URL. Oh, whoops, that was a JSON. So let me go back here and copy the URL. And that to start. Now, the next thing we're going to need is an external file or module, and this is called VBA JSON. It's a JSON parser for Visual Basic. Now, in order to actually extract the data from here, we need to parse this array, right? So we're parsing the key and value pairs, and there's no native library in Excel that allows you to do that. So what you're going to want to do is clone or download, and then download the zip file, extract the zip file. So I'll do it right here just to show you guys. Open it, and then put it to your desktop or another area. I already have it, so I'll replace it. And you want to make sure you put that file that I just pointed to. And after that, what you want to do is go back here and insert a file. Hold on one second. Import a file, sorry, and then point to this one, and you have the converter right here. Now, the only other thing we have to do is add a reference. So we need scripting runtime for Microsoft in order for this to work. So we'll scroll down. I think I just passed it. Okay, and make sure that's okay. And as you see right here, just to test it out, if you're concerned whether or not it works or not, what we can do is simply copy their code right here and just print the JSON to see if it works. So I'll blank out this URL for a sec, and then I have my immediate window already kind of loaded, but I'll run this, and we can see our JSON printed. So that's a test to see if this all works. So you're going to need that, and after you're done with that, you can get rid of this, except for the URL. And then we're pretty much good to get going on making the bulk of our subroutine right here. So one thing to keep in mind is when you are going through and pasting array elements to a worksheet, you want to make sure you have the correct column headers. So we can basically just push this to the side for a sec and shrink this. So I guess I'll move it over. I already had them written down before. So what you'll want to do to start is create some array call headers. So these are essentially just going to be pasted to the worksheet. So we're going to say dim my array as variant. We're going to say my array equals array. And this is with all the price data. So we have the date, open, high, low, close, volume, unadjusted volume, and the rest. So we're going to create all these in an array. So date as strings, of course. Open, high, low, close volume, and I might just copy and paste the rest in. So I'll go over here. Back to the converter page we were on, and just copy and paste them from there. Okay, so these are going to be our column headers. And after we're done with that, we can close off the array. And what we can do is print this array to our worksheet. So we can, number one, just create the size of the array to start. So we're going to do that by creating an upper and lower bound. So ubound, which is creating the upper bound, my array, minus lbound, my array, +1. So that'll calculate our array size. So if we just create that in the message box, $12, and that is correct. So we're gonna write these to a sheet. So we'll declare our worksheet. Okay, and we will next create our target range. So dim range target as range set range target equals, we'll use our worksheet object and then use a cells reference. So the first row, first column. Oh, what happened to my cursor? And then all the way to the array size, which is going to reference the last column. And we'll say our target range is equal to our array. And let's see if that prints out to the sheet. Perfect. And that's a quick and dirty way of doing it. Instead of looping, we've just created one line, basically, or a few lines technically, with declaring variables in order to do this. So we can delete all this. So the next step is going to be to create some sort of way to request the data from the web into Excel. So we can just use a web request for this, obviously. And what you want to make sure is that you have a certain reference in here. So I'm not sure if you need this, but it's probably going to be safe to do it. So it's usually Microsoft Win HTTP controls. So this one right here, you might not need it though, but I would just do it just in case. So what we can say, we'll say send web request for API data. So we'll set our request to start, and we're going to create an object to do this. So create object when HTTP dot when HTTP request dot 5.1. Okay, and next we're going to open as a get request our URL. So we can just say, let me move this up here. I'll just say U for that. Okay. Oh, that's supposed to go down here. Awesome. So after that, we can send our request. And now what we can do is use our JSON converter to parse the JSON. So we're going to dim JSON, and this is straight from the documentation on that GitHub page where we got the code from, as this object and set the JSON equals JSON converter, which will reference our file, dot parse JSON. And what are we parsing? Our request in the response text specifically. Awesome. So what we can do to test if this works is just get the number of elements or objects in the array. Okay, so we'll say dim array length as integer, and then the array length can be equal to json.count, and then we'll use a message box to display that length. Okay, let's test it out. We have 253, and I believe we had 1 year prices, so that is correct. Next, what we can do is we can loop through all the elements in our JSON response. Now, we can use a variety of methods to get this to the worksheet. So we're basically going to iterate over all that data, 200 whatever days worth of data, and then print it to the rows right here. So we can do something similar to what we did right here, where we just printed our array straight to the worksheet. But I'm going to display it in a more simplistic form and allow some manipulation for whoever wants to do it to find a method that might be better than the method I might be using. But I'm literally just going to loop through this entire array and basically just structure it like that. And you don't technically need loops, but with JSON that might be created a little differently, you may or may not want to consider a different approach to parsing or writing it to the worksheet. So what I mean by that is not all JSON is going to look the same, and just by using a one-liner or piece of code, it's not necessarily going to allow you to output it to the worksheet very cleanly. So I'm just going to use loops. So I'm going to loop through elements. So I'm going to dim element as variant, and that's from our elements up here, from our array. And I'm going to dim x, y, and r as integer. So you're going to know what those are in a sec. So I'm going to, the r is going to be set to the row we're going to use, so that's going to be 2. Y is going to be the column, and x is going to refer to the object in the in the JSON array we're referring to. Okay, so we're going to use a while loop here. So while x is less than array length plus 1 for each element in my array. So essentially what we're doing here is just referencing in the JSON the open, high, low, and close right here. So we're going to write to our worksheet and increment our column value, and then go to the next element. So just to explain this a little better right here, if we go and reference the page right here that we got the JSON converter from, you can note that they have methods on here in order to parse individual elements, right? So why don't we go ahead and do that just to show a better demonstration of what we're actually doing here. So what we can do, we can print this out. If we reference the first element, right, or first object in the JSON array, and then let's say the date, we can print that out and it'll show the date, obviously. And what we're doing essentially here is saying in this loop, okay, we're printing to the row and column in the worksheet and saying the first element in the JSON array, we're going to reference what? In a loop, all of these elements. And then after we're done, go to the next JSON object in the array. So that's really what we're trying to do with this loop right here. So I'll go ahead, uncomment this. Hopefully that made things a little more clear. And after that, after that, we were on our next element, and then all we really need to do after that is reset the column back to 1, increment our object count and increment our row count. Awesome. Okay, now we can move this to the side and run the subroutine. I'll delete all this first. And there was an error here. I didn't use a end statement to the while loop. So that's w end. And I think we have one more error over here. It looks like the array length. Oh, we forgot to just get rid of the GNTH here. So the while loop isn't even going to run. Let's try it one more time. And awesome, we have our data right here. So we can see that we have 254 rows, which is about right for 1 day's worth of price data. And what we're going to do right now is just use some string arguments into our URL right here, and create a form control button. So we can see doing this for different stocks. So we'll just put get data. I'll name the button something. Okay. And what I'll do right here is we can set a ticker range. So dim ticker as string. And then we can say ticker is equal to, we'll move it down to reference the right worksheet. Ticker is equals to ws.range. We'll say p7 dot value. And what we'll do as well is delete from A to L. And we can do that by finding the last row. We can delete that whole range. So dim last row as long. Or we can do integer. So last row equals ws.range. And we'll say cells. And that will be, or we can actually just do ws.cells. And then last row, or we can actually, we're going to say rows.count. And then in what column, we're going to reference column A, and dot end xlup.row, and that looks like it's okay. And then we'll just say clear range. So ws.range A1 to L, and then reference the last row. Dot clear. Okay. And we'll move all that down after. So let's test if this works all together with the same URL. Awesome, it does. So we'll pass in the string argument to our URL right here. We do that by quote and end quote, and then ticker. So we said it was P7, so we'll just say ticker, and then let's do Facebook or something like that. And we'll just move this up. And we see we have a different price right there. So let's try it for another one. Do Tesla. And you can see we have a lot of manipulation with this. And this is pretty much the same exact thing, or format almost, as the Yahoo API that we were able to use before. Now, we can also, with this API right here, we can get a bunch of different stuff, and I'm going to bring that over for a sec. So just feel free to check it out and explore. And I might do another video after this on some more complex stuff with building certain requests and getting certain data, because I'm sure I'm going to get more requests for the videos. So yeah, this is just one last time to show it off. We'll do Home Depot. and you can see we can get data pretty quickly. So this, in my opinion, is a great alternative to the Yahoo Finance API. I hope you guys like the tutorial, and have a great day. See you later.